Right, February. Uh, the clowns started again, following certain Chinese groups sending volumes of hit squad clowns, near 100 of them, to attack Kim and the team, plus several other fun games emanating out of China. Now, Kim sent orders to China to fix all issues and remove clowns within 48 hours or actions would be taken. Like previous threats, they were ignored, and like previous warnings, the team delivered. On Saturday, the money transfer system SIPS was taken down, and also their other transfer and data communications system, the satellite SATCOM, was also taken down. It was then found out that SATCOM is linked to a similar US military satellite system that was run out of Florida. And following those takedowns, they had to roll out an old 1980s comms system to get back up and running, and any further fun and games will be met with the same intent back and more, was the warning. They didn't heed that warning. On the Monday of the first week in February, for the second time in 3 months, Mr. Munchkin presented a gold certificate to Mr. Trump for funding leveraging again. And the gold certificate that was also found out to be fraud again. Essentially what he was doing, he was handing over gold certificates that actually belonged to the trust. Oops. And he was saying they belonged to some fake elderly Chinese people. Now, it was said at the time that Trump has fired this snake twice already and almost came to blows with him in the previous month, and yet he still lingers around like some bad curry meal. And this is what the conditions that Trump is working under currently. And then, having said TikTok in January, Pelosi got fired by the Black Dragon Group for failing to eliminate Mr. Trump and Mike Pence in the 9/11 style Capitol building plot and take over the presidency herself by the end of January. Pelosi, you failed. You will carry on failing. Oops. Then Eric Prince and his band of assassins was starting up a new venture again in China, a Blackwater-style Muslim training camp in Xinjiang, like the ones in Afghanistan and Iraq, under the new banner of Frontier Services Group. Now, Frontier Services Group had also got a license for airport services, VIP protection, and cash escort in Cambodia. So expect some sort of uprising and skullduggery there next. For those of you who may remember, that group was, Trump was over, I think, seeing Kim Jong at the time. And Prince was the escort, which we did warn Mr. Trump not to go because of the fun and games. And then following on from the previous story, Eric Prince was then, after we warned, Kim personally warned the Chinese government what he was up to, the Chinese government told him he cannot build a Muslim terrorist training base in China and will not be afforded any land. He had lied to the Chinese government, and the China government had pulled all support. What happened next is this led to an increase in the copy and paste voyeurs group, as their pedo and trafficking leader is connected to Eric Prince. Now, this same week, Trump did a speech made in favour of Israel, which didn't go down well with this show, and didn't go down well with many other shows either, including the QAnon blog. Things are still ongoing. And there was reference again to the Holocaust, and so we wrote this piece. The Holocaust brings in much discourse and much discord also, as despite failing numerous times to produce the actual evidence that 6 million Jews died in horrific circumstances during World War II, as several global researchers have discovered. One life lost is important. I want to make that clear. But here are some of the figures that dwarf the alleged 6 million figure based on that war. Germany lost 7 to 9 million of its people. China lost 20 million, with some estimates actually stating they lost nearer 50 million. Russia lost 24 million people just during World War II. Even the Dutch East Indies lost between 3 and 4 million people. Poland lost 5.6 million, some of which were Polish Jews. The Philippines lost 1 million people, and even the small country of Romania lost 833,000, which is actually only 35,000 less than the total American and British people lost of 450,000 and 418,000 respectively. 25 million battle wounded. Multi-millions battle deaths and a staggering 45 million civilian deaths. And yet all we hear about is one group of people's deaths, which didn't even have a country at the time, until Britain stole land off the Palestinians and gave it to them. Not to be nice to the Jewish people, or some fake biblical prophecy, oh no. It was to establish a military base for a future hostile takeover of the Middle East lands and resources. And what was said back at the time, and the sooner the world, including the Jewish people, wake up to that reality, the world will always be on the edge of hostility, and we will continue to be railroaded into not questioning the Holocaust, or being forced to make rules up denying the public from criticising anything related to Israel. There's an old saying, the truth never fears investigation. That saying has to apply to all, methinks. And then we did first of several pieces about magic, light and dark, perceived to be very different, but in reality it's not. Both can be devastating, and both come with a price. A heavy price where humanity is concerned. There was a line in the series called The Magicians. Not a particularly good show, but there's always one or two lines in those type of shows that is indicative. And it said, magic was introduced to humanity by the gods to destroy them. A nice throwaway line in the middle of a script most would dismiss as inconsequential because it's only fiction, right? No, wrong. Because that's exactly what happened, and that's exactly where it came from. They know it comes with a price. And we fell for the seducement. Magic is illusion, they say, so the gods gave us illusion to destroy ourselves. In fact, they gave us so much illusion and magic, we can no longer grasp on a planetary-wide level what is real and what is not. Clever stage theatre abounds everywhere on many levels, does it not? Like politics, the classic old stage theatre puppet show of Punch and Judy. One portrayed as a baddie and one good. But if they're both operated by the same string puller, it matters not who is good or who is bad. This is the classic magician trick, the sleight of hand, is it not? I know many will see magic as fun, and some see it as a chance to balance things out to the dark magic. But what if it's not magic at all? And it's just a sleight of hand parlour trick, done by non-form entities given the illusion that you perform the magic, when actually you never. But then it's you who pays the price for the magic. Still think it's worth it? All magic is external. Again, another example of people externalizing things when you should be internalizing things. The magic is external because it's not you performing it. The real magic, or the correct term, is abilities when your frequency has gone up sufficiently and your junk DNA starts to be switched on. These are latent abilities within us all. Magic is just lazy man's tech, like a cheat sheet on a video game, when all the tech we ever needed is within us, provided you are prepared to work towards it and also be responsible with it as well, as you can lose that ability far quicker than you can gain it. And then we threw out this ponder. It's had people a bit triggered, as this show likes to do occasionally. There was a consensus on the chat at the time that people are getting tired of the sleepers. But then we asked the question, but what would your reactions be if all the sleepers vanished overnight? Have you contemplated if potentially 85% or more suddenly vanishing? How would you cope? Would you mourn for the missing and lose track of your own mission and purpose? Would you mourn but then become more energized and focused on mission and purpose? What if you thought you were awake but you still remain? How would you feel? Would you think you were cheated? Would you be envious of those gone? Will it be all-consuming to you? Would you think you have in some way failed? Does that deflate you or inspire you to achieve a greater height? The 15% will miss the 85%, but will the 85% notice? And would it be the case that they will mourn more, or will the 15% more than the loss of the 85%? And then I said, for the ones who have already seen the quote unquote videos of those disappearing in large numbers, how did that fact affect you personally? Will seeing the real events be easier now you have seen, or worse? And then we issued a rather stark intel piece, short, but straight to the point. To the several countries who hold foreign reserves of US dollars in Wells Fargo and Citibank, the issue is any nation that holds foreign reserves of USD in those banks now has zero left. It's all gone. They spent it on you. You're talking 140 odd countries holding US dollars in Wells Fargo and Citibank. It's all gone. That was in February. Wells Fargo transferred its cash on hand last week to HSBC Hong Kong on the promise that the Chinese Li family was going to trade it, leveraging again. Then the HSBC servers went down and all was and still was lost. They didn't get it back. It just went into the Dragon Rothschild slush fund. Stupid is, stupid does. Then the trust hooked up the system to all 12 Federal Reserve banks, the Departments of Treasury, and all the intelligence agencies and set the stage for some more hammers. The trust then informed the Fed that it owed the trust $2.8 quadrillion. The trust transferred the $2.8 quadrillion of Federal Reserve debt to the Department of Treasury as the assignee to collect on the debt, as they are past due. Over to the Department of Treasury, and they have 24 hours to pay. Or the Treasury, who is the regulator over all private banks, has the right to foreclose on them all, aka all 12 Federal Reserve banks. And also take all they have, including the computer systems and all the buildings they are sitting in. The trust requested that Mr. Mnuchin oversees the transfers and the safe delivery of notes and assets. Well, as you all know, they're still operating. But as you also know, that debt, the American debt, was cancelled during that transaction. So they can spout about 20 or 22 trillion all they like. That was cleared, as was the Chinese debt. Then the following morning, Rothschilds told the Fed to ignore the Treasury. When it became apparent that that was not possible, they called Mnuchin to assign all the bonds to them. So then Kim revoked Mr. Mnuchin's login and security clearances again. But she also found something interesting. His security clearances was not issued by the US government, but by NATO in Belgium. Oops. The head of the Treasury having security clearances given to him by NATO in Belgium. People think they know how this country runs. So then when they tried to reissue, Kim denied him for the first 10 times they tried, and then just sent the message to impolitely but correctly to go away. And it appears Mr. Mnuchin was given very high clearances somewhere near Kim's, and something he is not entitled to. Following that interaction, the NATO systems were disabled by the trust. The scope of a Hillary Clinton email investigation going on then, that was hidden behind all the Russian collusion that was still going on. But the investigation was so private, if you thought that the head of the Treasury being issued security clearances by NATO in Belgium was a bit off, to put it mildly, this is even worse. So the Hillary Clinton email investigation was so private, the OIG, Office of Inspector General, which is the Government Oversight Committee, quote, didn't have the necessary security clearances needed to view the emails. So you got the Treasury being given security clearances by NATO, and the Officer of Inspector General, who is the Government Oversight Committee, don't have the necessary security clearances to read what they need to do their job. And so the emails were then not allowed to be passed to Congress, because it has to go through the OIG, who didn't have the security clearance to read them. And this is what I've been telling our members regularly, and if you knew, there is no oversight of the government or its myriad of contractors connected to it all. All the 3, 4, and 5-letter groups in America have zero oversight. And quite frankly, none of them are connected to the government. They may act that way, but they're not. The alt media hopium machine was in full flow, and with their distraction pieces around February and distraction agents also. And it made it categorically clear that there was no military tribunals going on currently in Gitmo or anywhere else, and no one has been selected from the alt media for those particular disclosure roles either. Soros arrested, Bush pleads guilty for 9/11, and Obama begs for his life, also has no basis of truth as it stands. When it comes to liberal causes, it seems that the pot of taxpayers' funds is never ending, as Pelosi's husband's brother, Ron Pelosi, received $737 million in 2011 from the Obama administration as a green energy loan. This was to build a solar power energy plant in the Nevada desert, which has since failed. And the massive loan agreement was granted despite growing concerns at the time about the use of taxpayers' money, as vast sums were invested in technology similar to that of the doomed Solyndra energy project. That green energy is, or the Green Deal, is still going to the Pelosi family, by the way. And then we dug deep on Disney and the interconnected with New York, Born In and Born To. The original Disney crew before Walt's death were not involved in pedophilia, according to the reports we received. And it was the subsequent leaders of Disney that took over the company, and the current CEO of Disney, Bob Iger, who was born to a Jewish family in New York. The former CEO, Michael Eisner, was born to an affluent secular Jewish family, also in New York. Eisner also brought in Jeffrey Katzenberg, born in New York, born to Jewish parents. Following a takeover against Eisner in the 1990s, Roy Disney, along with Stanley Gold, born in New York, born to Jewish parents. Born in Los Angeles to Jewish parents. Bob Iger also moved to Disney to Shanghai. Iger co-chaired a fundraiser for Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign in 2016. Iger was named to President-elect Trump's Strategic and Policy Forum on December 2016 also, and he resigned from Trump's Advisory Council on June 1st, 2017, after Trump withdrew the United States from the Paris Climate Agreement. In June 2012, Steven Spielberg, also born of a Jewish family and founder of the USC Shoah Foundation Institute for Visual History and Education, presented Aga with the Ambassador for Humanity Award, the Institute's highest honour. Then we have another who is ahead of the film industry that has been exposed recently, Harvey Weinstein. Harvey was not surprisingly born in New York, born to Jewish parents. And let's throw in another one, Jeffrey Epstein, born in New York, born to Jewish parents. The Bronfman sisters involved in NXIVM, born into a Jewish family. Their father was the leader of the World Jewish Congress, who said in his book, The Making of a Jew, he explained, first, he called for the release of all so-called prisoners of Zion. The protocols of Zion they've tried to deny for the best part of 100 years. The Jews imprisoned for expressing a desire to emigrate to Israel. Bronfman also wanted freedom for Jews in the Soviet Union to practice their religion. And finally, he called for the freedom for Soviet Jews to learn Hebrew, which was forbidden at that time. Now, those statements will become much clearer in later pieces. Anthony Weiner, born in New York, born to Jewish parents. Keith Raniere, born in New York. And where was NXIVM started? New York. Who is the guy in the US Treasury blocking the Manor holding trust funds in support of the Jewish-based banker family, the Rothschilds? Stephen Mnuchin, who is also born in New York. Funny enough, to Jewish parents also. Who ran the Federal Reserve? Born in New York, born to Jewish parents. Alan Greenspan. Who dictated foreign policy during the 9/11 phase and operation, who took part in Project for the New American Century? Richard Perle, born in New York, born to Jewish parents. What building and organisation thinks it rules the world? The UN. Where is it situated? New York. Who runs it? The Jewish element. And perhaps you now start to see a picture. If you don't now, you will see later. So these parasites who took over the parks and the Disney brand that gives so much magic to children and adults alike. I know I've been several dozen times. It is a magical world, and it's turned into a monstrous organisation riddled with symbology. The letter M's everywhere is for Moloch, not Mickey or Minnie Mouse. Subliminal advertisements allow known rogue ETs walking amongst us in the park. I know, I've seen them. Install underground tunnels in Disney World where children go missing. Tunnels rumoured to be leading to a creepy small town around the Apopka Varnon Road area, where an old lady sits on the porch watching and monitoring all who goes into that 2 to 3 block village. Also rumoured the tunnels go to a mysterious military base in the heart of Orlando, owned by Lockheed Martin. All of that has to be brought to light and brought down, and the whole thing repackaged back to its original intention. Of course, Nestle are famous for their quote, "It's not a human right to have clean water." McDonald's, apart from certain shite replicas of food containing all kinds of things, including human fetuses, use what as their logo? The clown. That is, and was, a subliminal message to the children who experienced them in their sleep. They are real. As for the Epic Games, all video games are designed to change your brain pattern into chaos and worse. More subliminal programming, it lowers your attention spans and is creating for you the virtual reality loop they want you to jump into next after exiting the loop matrix. We followed that piece up to give people a better understanding of where these particular people are coming from, what is their plans, and how they see life and people, including their own people, actually. They don't give a monkey's shite about Jewish people. They're just there to be used. Now, this piece was by a Jewish person named Israel Cohen. That name again. Cohen means priest, as in calm. And this was said back in 1912, again during the time period that I mentioned during the From Russia with Love 3, I think, that was coming up. And we must realise, quote, we must realise that our party's most powerful weapon is racial tensions. By propounding into consciousness of the dark races that for centuries that they have been oppressed by whites, we can mould them into the program of the Communist Party. Oops. We will invest to instill in the whites a guilt complex over their exploitation of the Negroes. We will aid the Negroes to rise in prominence in every walk of life, in the professions and in the world of sports and entertainment. With this prestige, the Negro will be able to intermarry with the whites and begin a process which will deliver America to our cause. Unquote. You can't get more stark than that. Deliberately causing racial tensions, lying to the black people over the whites, make the whites feel guilty, which is exactly what happened 30 years later in World War II with the German people. Whole pack of lies is told about that as well. But the fact that he mentions that these Zionists were the Communist Party, not Russians, no, not Chinese or Vietnamese or Cubans. Zionists are the Communist Party. Told you. Israel Cohen, for people who want to go and read that themselves or check it up, and it was said back in 1912. For the first time since 2012, all the banking system witnessed new allocation numbers for the new money coming into the system. The Fed has no allocation numbers, as this was stopped several years back, and no allocation numbers equals no way to print money, and so no funds.